Everyone. Thanks for joining us live. We are here with Ian Foster, and Ian just happens to be a lawyer who knows about taxes and businesses. And I invited him today so we can learn more about that with our own business. And hopefully, we're doing everything just right. And if not, we have Ian here to ask them a bunch of questions. Ian, let everyone know how you're doing.
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. I will say it's a little early and cold here in the mountains on the West Coast. We got a lot of snow outside, so if I drop off, then we probably had a power outage. But so far, things are holding well, so I'm just staying warm.
I appreciate you getting up early and hanging out with us in the cold.
That's all right. That's all right. Gives me an excuse to get
All
out of bed
right.
and get something done. Yeah.
And how did you decide you wanted to become a lawyer?
I think I always knew I wanted to be an attorney. It just felt right for me. In a past life, I did engineering and manufacturing and other things, but finally got into politics and law and went to law school. I went to UC Davis out here in California, which was an amazing law school and perfect for me because it's some of you may have heard the stories where, and there's even movies where they do this, where on the first day of law school, you sit down and the professor says, okay, look to your right, look to your left. Out of the three of you, only one of you is going to graduate, and these people are your competition. Well, at the law school I went to, they said, look to your right, look to your left. Out of the three of you, we expect all three of you to graduate, and we expect you guys to cooperate and support each other and help each other get through it. So I knew right away I was in the right place. It was a law school that was dedicated to cooperation and community and service and doing the right thing. And so I loved it, got a great education there. Went into government work for 18 years. I was a government tax attorney where I uh, mostly went after very large businesses who were cheating on their taxes and cheating on their business compliance and regulation compliance and stuff like that. Multinational corporations who were sort of stealing from the treasury and stealing from the rest of us. And now I've been out on my own for the last 5 years in private practice, and I have a private legal practice. I do private business coaching. I run workshops for business owners. I recognize that a lot of business owners cannot afford my private legal rates, which is totally fine. I get it. And so I run workshops and masterminds and stuff like that to teach people about the law and how they can do a lot of compliance and how there's a lot you can do without needing to hire someone like me one on one. Quite frankly, there's once you get a little confidence and get over the anxiety and the overwhelm, you realize you can take action, just like anything else in life. We don't know what we don't know, and the things we don't know are scary, but once you know them, it's not so scary anymore.
That's nice. Yeah, I do get scared of the things I don't know.
hmm
So, how did you come to work with event producers?
I have been working with sort of the coaching and healers community for a while, and so I started to get to revert to folks who were running events first, pre-COVID, mostly live events, right? And then post-COVID started being a lot more virtual events. And now it's kind of a cool mix of live and virtual. So over the last year, I've done a lot of live events, a lot of virtual events, and started to just look into the different legal issues and risks that were associated with that stuff. And I love events. I was excited to get to revert to work with event producers because I love attending them. I love speaking at them. I love just being part of the community. To me, it's all about community, right? And events are such a great way to meet folks and form community and kind of, I think of it as sort of my expanded family. Family is not just who we share DNA with, it's the people we share common values with and the people we choose to spend time with. And so to me, events are just they're family building opportunities for me. And so I've enjoyed helping out with that, and now I have a number of clients who are event producers, again, live and virtual. And so it's one fun thing especially during COVID, is starting to look into the different legal risks between live and virtual. Like a lot of the legal risks for live events have been pretty well established and understood for a long time. And now, when it comes to virtual events, we've started to see entirely different sort of risks and issues pop up. Things that nobody ever thought about before have become issues now. And so it's just, for me, it's been fun, fun intellectually to learn that stuff, but also just very rewarding to help people put on events safely. Because the way I see it, look, if you put on an event, nothing's worse than getting in some sort of legal trouble afterward because you didn't understand the risks. I mean, it really, bursts your balloon. All of the great energy from the event just goes right out if all of a sudden there's some sort of legal issue afterwards, right? And this way, you can feel safe, you can feel confident, and then you can keep helping people. And that's the whole point, is getting more people into our events so we can expand our reach and the ripple effect of good work goes out in the world. And if you're confident and feeling safe, and if your clients feel safe, if your attendees feel safe, if your speakers feel safe, then you can all just keep doing that good work together. So to me, that's sort of the whole point.
Yeah. It makes sense. You do get the people who come in and start counting your money for you, but they don't really know. So,
Yep.
could you tell us what kind of issues have you seen with virtual events?
Yeah, definitely. And some of them are kind of the common issues I see with just sort of the whole coach or speaker, coach and speaking world in general. Basic things that people need to remember, like form your business entity, right? You know, have a corporation or a limited liability company, or some sort of business entity to provide a shield between your business and all your personal assets, and make sure you're doing things the right way. It's kind of the what we call kind of the grown up, right? Put on your grown up clothes, and be a grown up about it. So form your business entity. And some of this stuff, say, if it sounds obvious to some of you folks listening, that's great, but I say this stuff because it's not obvious to everybody, which again is okay, because we don't know, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So make sure you're forming a business entity and using it properly, actually, separating out your bank accounts and your personal and business expenses. And if you're, it's not a bad idea if you run events often and you have other lines of business, you might have an entity that just runs the events to keep that siloed off from other parts of your business. Maybe you're doing some private business coaching over here. Maybe you're doing some other kind of work over here, and then you have this big event side of your business. I have several clients now who events are becoming enough of an issue in what they do, that they're creating separate business entities just to run the events. Because that way,
Wow.
if something goes wrong at the event, it's not going to take down everything, right? You can keep that siloed off, and so it will have its own entity, its own accounting, its own taxes, its own bank account, its own insurance, the whole thing, right? And then other basic things, like make sure you have written agreements in place with folks who come to speak at your events, right? Between you and your speakers. And this is not because you don't trust them. It's not because they don't trust you. It's because you do trust each other. And it's because you do want a long and fruitful relationship with these folks. It's because you want to continue to partner with them and help people for years and years and years to come. Written agreements are there to protect and create trusting relationships, not ruin it. And same thing, written waivers and agreements with the people who attend the events, right? Everybody who attends should be signing some sort of event waiver with you, whether it's live or virtual. And, again, this is not because there's a lack of trust. This is because you do care about people and you do trust them. And again, you want to keep helping them, right? Nothing ruins a good relationship like a money problem or a legal problem. Right? I mean,
Yep.
it happens with the friendships and family and business partnerships all the time. And so much of it can be cut off at the pass and prevented up front by just having, simple written agreements in place.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be complicated, right? They can be written in your own words and cover the basics. You don't need complicated legalese. And then, look, there is a time and a place for complicated legalese, right? If you're making a multi-million-dollar business acquisition, which a number of my clients do, then yes, come to me and we're going to write up a 100-page super complicated agreement. But that's because everybody's represented by a team of lawyers and there's millions of dollars at stake, right? But for your everyday interactions, with you, the people who attend your events, the people you put on events with, your speakers, simple in your own words is the way to go. Just something so that we all know we're on the same page, right? And yes, people do come to me and pay me to write that stuff, but that's usually because they just they don't want to take the time to do it. They'd rather I do it. But again, writing it up in your own words goes a long way, because people are paying you to hear your words, not my words, right?
Yeah.
Your energy, not my energy.
How soon should you introduce a contract or a waiver?
Right up front, you know. So to me, when you like, if you have a speaker coming to your event, you should already have that speaker's contract ready to go for them, you know. And so basically, as soon as you and they have agreed on the topic and the timing and everything, then go ahead and send something to them for them to sign. So everybody's in agreement on that, right? And same thing, the event waiver should be agreed to as soon as somebody signs up to attend the event for your attendees, right? And that can be, you know, basically at the moment they register for the event, there should be some kind of thing that they can look at and check off to say, yes, I've read the terms and agreed to it. You know, usually for virtual. For live events, you know, a lot of times at live events, we're still doing paper waivers where before you can walk into the room, you have to do a quick signature, right? So for virtual events, same thing. Before you get into the room, so to speak, there should be something people can look at and actively, you know, you don't have to be sending people documents through DocuSign. That can be a pain, especially if you're dealing with a lot of attendees, right? But it should be some sort of terms that people can read, and whatever platform you're using should have a mechanism where people can check off to say, yes, I've agreed to the terms. And that's when they get their link to attend the event. So it's, and to me, it's always best to do it up front, right? Because we're not trying to hide the ball. You want to be upfront with people about what the terms are, right? We should be honest about it. You know, it's only fair to people. Somebody might read your terms and say, you know what, I don't like it. I'm not going to attend. And that's fine. That's their choice, right? Empower people to make their own choices.
Yeah. Yeah. On my other show, my Thursday show, Talk Virtual, I interviewed a guest and they then told me that they didn't want the show to go live. I'm like, this is a live show. It went live
Mm,
as we were speaking.
right.
And she's like, don't show it anywhere else. I'm like, it's live to 12 platforms already. And I'm
Yeah.
like, when I say we're live to these 12 platforms, we're actually live on these 12 platforms. And
Hmm.
like, I wish, I don't know, I could have communicated that better.
Well, it may be that you did and they didn't understand or hear it, you know. I mean, miscommunications do happen also. That's a
Yeah.
totally normal and natural thing. But again, the, it's just about being upfront. You know, there's no right or wrong answer to whether it's going live to different platforms, to whether it's private, to how you use the recordings. It's just as long as you're being upfront with people about it. I've written up some event waivers, and where the you know the person's plan is, yes, they're going to have the recordings, but mostly just for quality control. They don't plan to sell them. They don't plan to market them. And that way we can put in the event waiver, hey, these recordings will not be used for marketing. They will not be sold. So you can feel free to open up and be honest, and you know, you can feel a little bit better. Other event waivers will say, look, these recordings are going to be used for whatever we want later. They might be given away, they might be sold, they might be marketed. But again, it's just about being honest up front in the waiver so everybody knows what the rules are and we can all be on the same page.
Yeah. On my Thursday show, another guest I thought was just profound. So I broke up that content, made them into clips, made video landing pages, and sent
Hmm.
that landing page to their offer. And I'm like, oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God, why did you do this? I was like, I thought it was good content and that you might want to share. And I had a list of how they could share out the information. And he's like, please stop this. Don't send this out to anyone. I was like, this is for you. This is a gift. And they were
Hmm.
like just freaked out. I thought I was doing a nice thing, but
Yeah.
I can see how it could get into trouble.
Hmm. Yep. You know, misunderstandings happen, right? And that's okay. And that's why we have these written agreements, is to try and prevent those misunderstandings. We're all human. We see things a
Yeah.
different way, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
I didn't do that for everybody, but it freaked me out after that person freaked out.
Yeah. No, I get it. You know, look, that's how you learn too, right? You can have a great speaker contract, great event waivers in place, and still once a year you're going to come back and probably go through them and modify them, because we can't anticipate everything. Problems are going to come up, and you know, things you never thought of, and you're going to say, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that was an issue." And then so, you know, usually about once a year, all my clients, whatever their contracts are, their, you know, their service contracts, their waivers, whatever it might be, we're kind of going through their contracts once a year. and saying, what are the problems you had that we didn't anticipate last year? And how can we now work that in? What is the language that we thought was clear, but it turns out it wasn't clear when other people read it? How
Yeah,
can we make it more clear?
that's a hard one.
Yeah, and that's okay. Again, it's all a process, right? This is, protecting yourself and your clients and your business partners and stuff. This is a journey, not a destination. Just like her personal growth, just like our businesses, right? There's no destination in any of this. It's all a journey, piece by piece.
I believe that.
Hmm.
So, when it comes to having your business entity and I guess moving from the space of hobby to an actual business, I've heard that you should never consider it to be a hobby. Just go ahead and have your LLC or corporation mapped out.
Yeah,
Is that really the way to go?
that's a better way to go, right? So it's the whole thing about something be considered a hobby. I mean, as long as you are really intending for this to be your business and you're intending to make a profit at it and you're spending a lot of time doing it, it's not a huge danger of having it being classified as a hobby. But the best way to make sure it's never classified as a hobby is to have your business entity. Business entities, corporations, and limited liability companies don't get classified as hobbies for tax purposes. It's just not a thing that happens. It's not impossible, but I've never seen it happen. And it's so form the business entity, and you should be forming the business entity anyway, again, right? Because if there's some sort of harm that comes out of your event, and harm can come out of virtual events too, just like they can in person, you don't want that harm spilling over into other areas of your business, other areas of your life, right? This is forming your business entity to me is just sort of the right way to do it, kind of the grown-up way to do it. um, it's good for everybody all around. It shows that you're taking it seriously. It shows your speakers and your clients and your attendees that you're taking it seriously. So I would just do that anyway. And it's like I said, harm can come from virtual events too. We tend to think of physical events as more dangerous because, and in a sense they are, because if you're holding an event in a hotel room, right, the hotel ballroom or whatever it might be, somebody can fall down and crack their head open,
Wow.
right? So that's why we have event insurance, and people can get in fights, and we don't like to think of that as happening, but this does happen in real life. And of course, it never happens to you until it does, right? And then it's all of a sudden it's an issue. So you have all this built into your waiver, like, you're going to be nice to everybody. You're not going to hold us liable if you get hurt. You're going to be nice to the staff at the hotel, right? Not mistreat people. You're going to have your insurance in place. You need the same stuff for virtual events. A big thing at virtual events right now is movement exercises, right? Because everybody's stuck in their seat in front of their computer screen all day, whatever platform you're using. And so we're often bringing in people every couple hours, some kind of aerobics instructor or yoga person or, whatever it might be. And they're like, everybody get out of your chairs and move, right? Because you don't want people just stuck there sitting sedentary, falling asleep in their chairs. It's not good for them. It's not good for you. It's not good for the learning environment. So you're getting people up and moving. Well, so you're in your event waiver, you might want it to say, hey, during the movement exercises, it's your responsibility to make sure you have a safe, open space to do that in, right? Because again, even in a virtual event, you're doing a movement exercise, somebody gets up and they're doing the aerobics and they're having a good time, they trip and fall. Well, who are they going to sue, right? They're going to come after you. And
Wow.
same thing, you still want your virtual event waivers to have some of the same stuff about be respectful to other participants. Don't be an asshole, right? Show up and be a good person, be supportive, be nice to people. Respect other people's confidentiality and privacy. You want it to be a supportive, nice atmosphere. Give yourself the right to kick people out if somebody's really disruptive. If somebody's being a real jerk off and being disruptive, you have to be able to kick them out, and
Yeah.
people have to know up front that that can happen, right? So protecting your IP, the content of the recordings. Make sure that everybody understands that the recordings are your property and let them know what you're going to do with the recordings. Like we said, a few minutes ago, be upfront. If you only plan to use the recordings for quality control and you don't plan to sell them, well, you can tell people that. But if you think you might later on sell the recordings, or use them as bonuses or give them whatever it might be, then be upfront about that as well.
Yeah. It's good to have all of that written out. Should that be like a disclaimer for attendees and speakers and sponsors?
Yeah, yeah. Anybody who might show up, right? So, there are certain things that are going to be common to both the contract with the speaker, the contract with the sponsors, the attendees, right? So there are going to be certain common aspects to all of that.
Okay. I was
Hmm.
wondering, if that should be like, in your scheduling phase, or should you just come on camera and say, "Hey, everybody, this is gonna be live streamed to 12 platforms. This will be, stored on YouTube. This will be bundled and packaged," or whatever, or just have it written, but it might be good to have both,
I
maybe?
tend to recommend both, right? So it should be right then when people are scheduling or signing up so that they can see it written out. And then when you get on, kind of repeat everything. I mean, when I run, virtual workshops that I record, it's in the terms and conditions when you buy the workshop, you're agreeing to all of that. But then I repeat it up front when people show up, right? I don't just assume that everybody read all the terms and conditions. Like, in fact, yeah, I don't. I'm an attorney. I should read all the terms and conditions that I sign up for, right? But you'd spend all day doing nothing but reading everybody's terms and conditions. So I assume that some people have skimmed through them or not read them, and I go ahead and repeat some stuff just to be clear and upfront with people. And I think people appreciate that.
That's nice. Um I did assume, and I know I'm not supposed to assume, but I assumed that, like in photography, if you're out in public, you have the right to use the images of people that are out in public. So you're on the internet. I'm thinking that's a public place, but nope. Some people, for no, it's not.
Yeah, not everybody thinks of it that way, right? And you don't want to get involved in a legal dispute over it one way or another.
Yeah,
There's no slam dunk win in the law. I have lost when I worked for the government. I lost a couple of cases that I thought were slam dunk 100%. We're going to win this case. We have them dead to rights, and it only takes one little thing to go wrong in a mediation or a courtroom or whatever it might be. And it's better to just avoid those disputes altogether. Plus, the disputes are, they're costly in terms of time and money and emotional energy, and they're draining. It's just no fun to be involved in a legal dispute, right?
I
I'm
believe
an
that.
attorney. I don't like to be involved in legal disputes. They're awful. They're stressful. They suck. So I try to avoid them for myself and I try to avoid them for my clients. And you do that by being upfront with people, by being honest, by make sure we're all on the same page, by being generous. Always be generous with people in terms of giving them things they want or refunds or whatever it might be. I've had clients call me up and be like, "Hey, this person wants a $5,000 refund, but I have a no refund policy. What do I do?" And I said, "You give them the refund." They're like, "Well, but I have a no refund policy." And my answer is, what is that $5,000 worth to you? Right? I mean, you're going to pay me more than that to deal with the legal dispute, first of all. And
Yeah,
plus it's just, what's it worth? The bad juju and the bad karma. And often when you're really generous with people, you've now got yourself a client for life too, right?
yeah.
They're going to keep coming back and they're going to tell other people. Erica was
Um,
super generous with me, and Erica gave me a break, and it's just it's good for business, right?
I'm not sure if Erica would actually do that. Not only would I give you your $5,000 back, but you would be off all of my list. You will never be invited to another event again.
Well, yeah, depending on how it went, right? Now it could have been a simple misunderstanding. It could have been the person was really disruptive, and you don't want them back. So it kind of depends on the circumstances. If it's someone you otherwise like and it was just a misunderstanding, then great. You figure it out and you move on. But if the person's really disruptive, then you're right. You probably don't want them back. And not everybody's a good fit, right? It doesn't mean they're a bad person.
True.
right? It just we're all traumatized people running around traumatizing each other. That's the crappy world that we live in, you know.
Wow.
So,
So I've heard stories of virtual event producers hosting workshops, 3-day workshops. People would go through the 3-day workshops and then ask for a refund. And they would pay through PayPal, and PayPal would give them their money back. And I was like, wow, I would feel like I
mhm.
just got robbed.
Yeah, it's just part of the cost of doing business, right? And it depends on the payment services you use. You know, some services are quicker to give refunds than others. You know, a lot of credit card companies even are just quick to, stop payments because they're so, they're trying to protect their customer base. They're trying to prevent fraud. And, to me, the best way to prevent that is to just, be cool and be nice and provide great service. And look, some people are going to take advantage. And, you know, that's just going to happen. and and you just figure that's just the cost of doing business. And for me, I try not to worry about it too much.
Yeah,
There's always going to be people who are either unsatisfied or who are just taking advantage, and that's
no way
that's
around
life.
it.
That's just life. Yeah. So don't stress about it too much.
Yeah. So another thing about the hobby and being a real business, or as you say, a grown up, I've
Hmm.
heard. I don't know if this is true. I'm repeating hearsay.
Sure.
Um, PayPal and other companies like it. If you have their card, you're taking money, you're doing transactions, you'll get a 1099 for taxes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. These are all reported, right? This stuff is all reported for tax purposes. Payment processors report payments. It's the law. It's how it's always worked. So yeah, you want to make sure you're reporting all the income that comes in through those, or
Yeah.
there's going to be a mismatch, and you'll trigger an audit real quick. One of the biggest audit triggers I see is people not reporting income on their tax return
Oh,
that their payment processor is reporting to the government. And the
wow.
government has big, massive supercomputers that go through and look for mismatches like that. So it's one thing if you're getting paid in cash. Now, look, if you're getting paid in cash, that's still income. You should report it, but it's harder to track. If you're using PayPal, Zelle, Venmo, any credit card company, Stripe or Square or any other payment processor like that, that's all reported to the government. So if your event brings in, $20,000 via PayPal, you better report $20,000 in income, or there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So
Even
yeah,
the part that PayPal takes out for themselves?
sorry, what's that?
Even the part that, PayPal keeps for themselves?
Yeah, that's income to you too, right? That's income to you too, and then you deduct the processing fees on the back end, right?
Okay.
So payment processors, they keep a fee because they got to make money too. I don't begrudge them that. They're providing a convenience so that you don't have to, run around taking cash from everybody all over, especially virtually. That's not, you don't want people mailing you cash. So they're providing convenience, and they keep, whatever it is, 2.5 to 3.5%, depending on, what you have worked out with them. So you have to report the entire amount as income, and then you deduct the processing fee because they will report it all as income. And so that's a big mistake people make, is they only report their net as income. Now you have to report the gross as income, just like you would for your whole event, right? Your event has expenses. You're paying for the platform, you're paying for your internet service, you might be paying assistants to help you out, right? That all takes down your profit from the event, but you report the gross profit as income, and then you deduct the expenses just like the rest of your business. You don't just report the net. So
Okay,
that's no different.
okay.
Hmm.
So, I've heard you mention, at least 2 times, being an LLC and a corporation, and you haven't mentioned anything about sole proprietorship, but I heard when you're starting out, that might be a good way to start. Would you say
So
yes to that?
I never recommend being a sole proprietor. I shouldn't say never. Very rarely. There are rare circumstances where I will recommend it, depending on, but it's there's circumstances that are not going to be applicable to event producers, right? So for an event producer, I would never recommend being a sole proprietor. A sole proprietor is not any. It's not a business entity. It's just you, right? There's no legal protection. There's no financial. There's nothing. It's just you and your bank account, right? So if you're running as a sole proprietor and something goes wrong, your whole life is at risk. There's no separation between the event or your business or your lines of business, your personal, none of that stuff. So for running events, I always recommend forming some sort of business entity, and it's usually going to be a corporation or an LLC. I say usually because there might be circumstances where you form a different one, but in the United States, it's going to be one of those two entities. In Canada or the UK, well, in Canada, it's going to be a corporation. They don't have an LLC form, and in other countries, it's going to be a different kind of form. But form some sort of business entity that gives you liability protection.
Okay. Let's talk about insurance for virtual events. Is that
Mhm.
necessary?
It's I recommend it. It's usually cheap, right?
Okay.
Because the risk is so low. One-off event insurance, even for live events, is really cheap because they don't get that many claims out of it, and for a couple $100, to me that's cheap peace of mind. And or if you just have general business liability insurance, and as long as your insurer knows what your business is and what you're putting on, and you make sure you're covered. But having some sort of business insurance is good, um, because stuff happens, right? I mean, why do we
Yeah.
have car insurance? I don't have car insurance because I expect to get in an accident going to the store later today, right? Or because I want to get in an accident. In fact, chances are I'm not going to get in an accident, but it does happen,
Hmm.
right? And it may be today, it may be tomorrow, it may be 5 years from now. And when it does, you know, I'm going to be real glad I had car insurance. It's the same thing with your
Yeah.
business insurance, and business liability insurance for virtual events I mean, it's cheap,
It's good to
you
know.
know, is cheap. We're
Um,
talking, a few $100 a year. You have peace of mind that if something big goes wrong, the insurance is going to cover it. And often the insurer will defend you in the lawsuit as well, right? So then you're not hiring somebody like me.
yeah, it does make sense. Um, Harry Jameson is saying one-offs are $35 to $50 in some places.
See,
That's
there
good
you
to
go.
know.
There you go. It's cheap, right? Cheap peace of mind. Peace of mind is valuable,
I can see that.
right?
So let's say you have like a tech host in the Philippines and they have typhoons like every other day, and
Hmm.
you just got someone to pay you 20,000 to host an event, but you have no tech host. They might ask for their money back, and
They
you've
might
already
ask for their
spent it
money
on
back.
advertising.
Yeah, and that's understandable. And look, it happens, right? I live up in the mountains at 7,000 feet. We're in the middle of a huge snowstorm the next few days. I'm running a workshop tomorrow. If the snow cuts my power, there won't be a workshop tomorrow, right? So you have to think about these things, and what might happen. And that's yeah, and also, a lot of clients are usually, you know, most people don't get really upset, right? About stuff, but it's always that small percentage you do that you're glad you were prepared for it.
Yeah, right, just in case. You never
Mhm.
know, working with folks. Some people might have taken off work to be here with you on a certain day and time, and then your power goes
Mhm.
out and you can't go live, and they've paid you, and they might ask for their money back. So,
Yep.
mm,
Yep. No, and that's another thing. Look, like, money you collect for events and stuff. Don't spend it before the event. I mean, some of it you have to spend on prepping and whatever, but try to make sure that you can cover refunds for stuff like that if you have to, right? Or that there's a
yeah,
mechanism for rescheduling. I mean, for my virtual workshops, I build into the terms and conditions that, this is the date and time I'm going to try to do this, but if something happens outside of my control, we'll reschedule, and I'll do my best to try and find a time for everybody. And then look, if there's a couple people who can't come to the new time, then fine, they get their money back. No big deal.
yeah. There's another question here. Where do you get virtual event insurance?
I would I would search for it on the internet. I don't recommend any specific insurance companies just because I don't want any blowback from, somebody has a bad experience or anything. But there are tons of companies that do that sort of thing. I would Google it.
So I'm not saying I recommend it, but I asked my phone that same question, where do I get
Mhm.
event insurance? And my insurance company, my car insurance company, my house insurance company came up and it was the first thing. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
is that convenient or do they just already know I have this insurance?
Uh, yeah, you always want the insurance company to know what it is you're doing, right? Because they'll look for excuses to deny claims. If they don't, if they'll deny a claim if they come back and say, well, we didn't know you were doing virtual events, then they'll deny a claim. So it's better if they know, and it's better if you check with them. Sometimes you could get riders onto existing policies, like you may have a general business liability insurance policy for the year, and then they could do a quick rider on that for real cheap to make sure you're covered for virtual events. So I would always, I would talk to the people at your insurance company, be upfront with them, be open with them, talk to them, and find out. Get them to help you get the right policy.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You mentioned that you have a workshop coming up tomorrow. Oh, it's good to know. Harry says good to
Mhm.
know. um, you mentioned that you have a workshop coming up tomorrow. Could you tell us a little bit about your workshop?
Yeah. So actually, I mean, the tomorrow one is close to registration now, but I have one coming up on a week from tomorrow, so the 14th, where we are actually talking about the law as it relates to events, both live and virtual, and what are the legal risks that are associated with these, and what sort of documents you need in place, and kind of what are all the things you need to include in those documents. What are the considerations, right? And we're going to talk about the difference between live and virtual events when it comes to the law, and what are the different legal issues you have in place. I mean, with regard to virtual events, things we mentioned today, like making sure people have good movement space when you do movement exercises, virtual backgrounds. Like Erica, you have a virtual background right now, right? That's Virtual backgrounds are a legal issue in virtual events. Who owns the copyright to that background, right? If it isn't me, I can't use it. How do you take into account stuff like that? I mean, what if I decided to use a Disney background right now? Well, Disney is very jealous of their intellectual property. All of a sudden, they could get very upset. You have to think about this kind of stuff. These are real world considerations. um, and then the how do you put the event waivers in place? What are the different things you need? We're going to talk a lot about if you're running an event with someone, if you're collaborating with a business partner and running an event, how do you do that? How do you hire people to help you? That kind of stuff. What are the agreements you need in place with that? I see huge mistakes made all the time. Two wonderful, beautiful friends get together and say, "Let's run an event together," and they don't set it up right legally at the start, and all of a sudden after the event they're like, wait a minute, I thought we were going to split the money this way, and the other person says, no, I thought we were doing it this way, I thought you were in charge of this, no, I thought you were and now all of a sudden they're not friends anymore, right? Ruins the relationship. It's awful. I've seen relationships ruined over it. That can all be prevented if you know how to set it up properly up front, to make sure that when you're collaborating with people, whether it's a business partner, a speaker, an assistant, whatever it might be, so that everybody knows what everybody's doing up front. We're going to talk about all these issues, and how do you take action on them, and how do you write up the stuff. So I'm pretty excited about doing this. I run legal workshops every month and this happens to be the month where I'm doing the one on you know the legal issues related to running your events. And so I get a lot of people coming to this who are especially people who do virtual events now, since those are becoming more common.
Harry says, wow, backgrounds.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Yeah, that, music, there a lot of stuff we use at our events. People own that material. Right? How do we deal with
Yeah.
that if it's not ours? Hmm.
Yeah. I've heard stories of people using their own TED Talks and their only platform was YouTube. And when they cut to the part where they had a snippet of the TED Talk, YouTube cut off their event.
Yep.
So they and they had no backup. They
Yep.
did have to write YouTube and tell them that it was themselves who was in that TED Talk, and they need to, unlock their account. And I was like,
Yep.
"Wow."
No, it'll happen, right? Because YouTube doesn't want to get sued, right? YouTube is very quick to take stuff down because they're protecting themselves, right? They don't want to get sued over this.
Yeah,
So, and that's another good point. Just like virtual backgrounds, if you're going to use video clips, even if it's a video clip of you, you think, well, it's a clip of me, it's okay to use it at my event. Well, you may not own that clip. Just because it's a clip of you talking doesn't mean you own that clip. It
that's
may be a
right.
clip of you speaking at another event, and maybe that person owns the clip and you need their permission. Now, very often that person's going to say, fine, you have my permission, use it. But it's better to ask up front,
Yeah,
right? I mean, if somebody wants a clip of themselves talking on my thing, I'm always going to be like, fine, use your clip. That's fine with me. But I would rather know up front what's happening.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's all stuff that you got to think about.
I am shocked and surprised that, like, you're speaking on my stage right now. After we finish, I'm gonna give you this entire video because it's yours. This is your talk. You use it how you want. But
Mhm.
I am shocked and surprised that people do not give their guests their videos.
Yep.
It's like,
It,
wow.
it it depends, right? It depends on how you want to run it, and I'm not here to tell people how to run their business. I'm here to tell them of the legal and tax and financial risks and benefits involved, and then I let people make up their own mind, make an informed choice. And if you feel empowered, and if your speakers feel empowered, if your attendees feel empowered, then great. you know if you're Sorry, we have a new puppy at home, and so he wants to feel empowered too. So, but as long as everybody feels good about it, for a lot of this stuff, there aren't right or wrong answers. There's just what works for you and your tribe, and if it works for everybody, great. So, yeah, so I'm happy to drop a link. Should I just drop a link to the workshop in the
Yes,
chat, and then?
please.
Yeah.
Yes, please. And,
Okay.
I will make sure everyone watching this, via social platforms have that link also.
No problem. So yeah, there's the link. I keep most of my workshops are pretty affordable. They're 197. It's a half day workshop, and it's very hands on. It's interactive. I get a great supportive community of people who show up. So I try to keep it a pretty good atmosphere. Again, just like you and your events and everybody else, right? I'm very careful about the energy and having great people on, who really support each other. So yeah, I really enjoy them.
I like that. Harry says, I offer all of my guests a copy of the interviews. So some take it, some don't.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, and I was gonna say, I've spoken at some things, and I've produced some content for people where it's, I don't, I know in advance that I'm not going to get a copy and that they're going to own it, right? But at least then I'm making an informed choice, and I may ask for something more in return for that, right? Like if I get to then keep the copy of my interview or my speech and use it, great. But if somebody else gets to keep that content and it's uploaded to only their library for their people, well, I may want compensation for that, right? In return for that, because I'm now, I'm giving that content and I don't get access to the thing I'm making for you. Well, then you can always work out deals with people so that
Yeah.
everybody's happy. Everything's negotiable, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I assume a lot, and I know I'm not supposed to assume. I assume that since I'm a big fan of branding,
Hmm.
everybody wants to have free branding. So when
Mm.
we have this interview right now, it says the virtual event summiteers mastermind group. I'm going to give this to you. If you choose to share it with your friends and community, they're going to see that unless you're like really
Hmm.
good at editing and just cut it out. But still, it's great content that a lot of people should be able to see. I don't see
Yeah.
why people would hide that away, but everybody's not a fan of branding or
No,
marketing.
right. And it's, I'm happy for my name to be out there and people to see it. But look, the whole point is we're here to help people and make a difference, right? That's why we're putting on events.
Yep.
There are other ways to make money. Um, there are ways to make lots of money that don't help people. I mean, there are plenty of attorneys who make their living by helping rich people steal from rich people. I'm not one of those. I have no interest in that. I've dealt with those attorneys. They're not nice people. I would much rather, I still have to look at myself in the mirror. I have to be able to sleep well. I have to be able to be proud of what I'm doing. And so I'd rather be making a difference. And so if the stuff I say gets out there and helps someone, then great. Great. That's what it's all about.
Yep, I believe it. Ian, would you tell everyone your favorite social media platform?
I don't know that I have a favorite. I use Facebook is the only one I use. So it's yeah, I mean that's the only one I use basically, either business or personal related. Otherwise, I'm not a huge social media user. Yeah.
Understand, no worries.
Mhm.
It's just that you got this event coming up. I want people to know about you. I didn't see the link if you put it in the chat, but
Um,
I w-
I did. I wonder if I didn't share it right. I'm not used to this platform. I can
so
um
there's an arrow if you
yeah.
if enter didn't work.
Oh, there. I tried again. I don't know if it showed up now. It says I'm in the chat. There's also a Q&A. I don't know if I should post it. Oh, Thomas says it's there in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Hooray.
showing up for some
I
people at
see
least. So, yeah. All right. Very good.
it. So one more time, when is your workshop?
All right. So it's Saturday the 14th at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern, U.S. time.
Okay. So, coming up real soon. The link is in the chat. I will share with every one of you who's watching on all the other platforms. Um, Ian, do you have any last words?
Just have fun with the events, right? Look, events are supposed to be fun. If it's stressing you out, then rethink how you're doing it. You have fun with it. Make sure your attendees are having fun. Give people value. Um, and this doesn't sound like legal advice, but it really is in a sense. Because if you're having a good time, and if your attendees are having a good time, if your speakers are having a good time, if everybody's enjoying themselves, you're not going to have legal problems, right? People who are having a good time don't get involved in lawsuits with each other, right? It's when people are upset or when they're feeling left out, when they're feeling unheard, misunderstood, that's when you end up with legal problems, right? But being nice and having a great time with people and providing them with lots of value and being really generous, not only is that just a wonderful thing, but even just from a selfish perspective, protects you because those people are not going to end up coming back at you for refunds and lawsuits and whatnots because they had a great time and they got value, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the whole point. You know.
All right. Well, for everyone watching on all the other social platforms, we have to say if you want to hang out with more cool people like Ian Foster, you have to join the Virtual Summonteers Mastermind group. But until then, we're going to let y'all go and we are going to go to the lounge and hang out with Ian some more. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you next month for the first Friday with the Virtual Summer Tears Mastermind Group Master Classes.